What's up friends, and welcome back to the video. So today it's time to jump into the KT250 again. So in the last video you guys saw I took out the KT250 on its first hard enduro ride in stock trim, or with the motor in stock trim. We added some tires and some protection parts to it. It handled the trails absolutely nicely in stock trim. But today we are going to be adding a bit more power. But before we jump into that, I just want to do a quick walk around and review what happened to the protection parts. So first off, the disc guard, it took some shots, and as expected with carbon, because it's got an epoxy coating on, it did chip off the epoxy a bit, but no cracks. And it is still solid. One thing we have to change up is the way it mounts. I think for the next revision on the prototypes, we'll add in some steel sleeves over here, because this one pulled right through the carbon. So this I did not have high hopes for, and it actually lasted pretty well. It's still a bit dirty, but you can see it is scratched through all the way to the Kevlar protective layer. So if we were going to go with a carbon bash plate, it would have to be a little bit thicker, but yeah, it did the job nicely. Then the side covers, one thing that we forgot to take into account is that the drain hole was covered, and I wanted to dump the oil and change the oil, and these covers are just glued on with some high temp silicone, and I could not get the cover off. It's like on here properly, so I had to cut the cover, unfortunately, to get to the drain plug. So what we'll do in future is we'll have the cover dip down and not cover up the drain plug, and then have the bash plate come out and over to give the bottom of the engine case a bit more protection. Maybe have it come down from here and so on. The swing arm guards, same thing. They did the job that they were intended to do, but obviously they are going to get scratched up. But that's just the epoxy. We can literally sand it down and spray it again. And the engine cover on the other side does not even have a scratch on it, but this will do the job perfectly. So seeing as we're on this side of the motor, what we are going to be doing today is we are going to pull the carb, pull the intake boot and reed cage, because we are going to be upgrading the reeds. So these are Boyesen dual stage reeds. I'll have the code linked on the screen. So the difference between this and stock, and I'll show you guys in a minute as well, is it's just a better quality Kevlar material, and it's a dual stage reed, so it's a little bit stiffer. It offers more control for the airflow, and it atomizes the fuel a little bit better, thus increasing torque and performance. So we're going to pull out the reed cage, swap over the reed leaves and install it back in. I wanted to do the pipe as well in this video, but the pipe needs to be straightened out again. It's actually crunched down because it was smacked by a rock from the bottom, and the neck is pretty badly kinked again. It's kind of difficult to show it on camera. And we've got a pinhole leak here, and like a stress fracture over here from the pipe bending and twisting, so it's leaking in a couple of places. So we need to get it welded up, straighten out again. So we'll keep that for a separate video where we straighten out the pipe, and then we'll throw it on the bike and test it again. I think it works out well, because now we get to test the performance upgrades in stages. Now we can like give you a definitive result, or show you a definitive result of the performance increase that the reeds give you. As I mentioned before, the order of operation that I'm going to follow is I'm going to unscrew the top and pull the slide out and put that off to the side. Then we'll loosen up the airbox boot and the intake boot, pull out the carb, then we'll have access to get to all the bolts for the intake boot. Okay, with the carb and intake boot and reed cage pulled, I can kind of give you guys a breakdown of what's going on. So just note that there is a gasket in between the air boot and the reed cage, but they do kind of supplement it with a very jelly-like RTV. So I'm going to be using RTV to put everything back together again, just a little bit. Now, here is your reed cage. So air goes through this side and the little reeds flap with the RPMs of the motor, and this is just a stopper to stop the reeds from bending too far. Now we are going to remove these. It's just attached with 6 little screws, but you got to be very careful not to strip out these screws. They are very what's the word, I wouldn't say flimsy, but they do strip off very easily. So we're going to remove these, install these reeds, attach them, and just do the assembly. All right, with all of the mating surfaces cleaned, we went ahead and we reinstalled the Boyesen reeds. Now, once again, these screws, do not over tighten them, they will strip. So just tighten them down until they are snug. They won't come loose. They've got a little spring washer with them. Do not over tighten and strip them. So as I mentioned, with the mating surfaces cleaned, we are now going to be using some high temp RTV, just applying a film, a thin layer, just to help aid sealing. And then we'll let that flash for about 10 minutes. And then we'll install it back into the bike. And just like that, the install is done. So we let the RTV flash off, we installed the reed block and the intake boot. Once again, when you tighten down these 8mm bolts, don't over tighten them. They don't need to be at like a excessive torque level, just hand snug them. And yeah, to get the carb back in, it's going to take a bit of finagling and twisting. Just be patient with it. You don't want to rip the airbox boot. You can get it in, you have to kind of twist it on its side, get it in, get the front into the intake boot, and then pop the rear in. Total install time should be around 30 minutes. So because it was such a quick install and I documented it in a quick and dirty way, I think we're going to include the test ride portion in this video. So the next clip you guys will see is me on the trails, testing the bike, trying to see if we can feel a difference from stock versus the Boyesen dual stage reeds. So from some prior technical riding, a rock smacked the gear lever, and now yeah, with that a bit of aggressive shifting, the gear lever broke right off. So fortunately for technical riding, you just need like first or second gear. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I know I promised some riding clips, but it was so insanely hot on the day. It was like 34 degrees outside, just like the ambient temperature. And then on the mountain, with all the rocks saturated in heat, and with the radiant heat coming up from the mountain, it was probably like over 40 degrees on the mountain. And the GoPros literally just switched off. Like the camera's overheated, so we could not record anything. So the riding clips that we have is not really an accurate depiction of the difference that the reeds made on this bike. The next video will be a dedicated riding video. We'll head out a little bit earlier in the morning before it gets insanely hot, and we'll get some good riding footage for you guys. But from personal experience, I can tell you that the reeds definitely did make a difference. The bike runs a little bit better. It's got a little bit better power right through the rev range. It doesn't stall out quite as easily on the technical stuff, so it definitely does help, and it's a cheap mod, so I don't see any reason why it's not worth doing it. Anyways, stay tuned for the next dedicated riding video, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You know, even though we could not deliver on the riding footage. Anyways, hit that like button, hit subscribe if you want to, and peace out. Keep ripping.